Good morning. Welcome to episode 3 of Tea and a Reasoning. Today I'm filming today's episode on my morning walk. And first, let's get into the tea that we're drinking. So today we're drinking masala chai. Chai is my favorite tea. It's just so comforting and creamy and spicy and delicious. It reminds me of Christmas at your grandma's house. Yeah, that's the personality of chai. Cheers. I'd love to know what tea you're drinking, so feel free to comment down below and let me know. All right, let's get into today's reasoning. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about our internal dialogue, or even external dialogue for that matter, because sometimes we be talking to ourselves out loud. At least I know I do sometimes. But for the last couple of episodes, we talked about what it feels like to come into our own on an emotional level. And then we also talked about expressing ourselves. And so today I wanted to share a little bit about how we talk to ourselves. So how we talk to ourselves is something of great importance because we're basically with ourselves 24/7. And so if what you have to say to yourself is always negative, then that will have negative impacts. And the same goes for positive. If you have positive things to say to yourself, then it will have a positive impact. I feel like it's easy to take what we say to ourselves for granted in that it's not someone else that's saying it to you. So it's like we don't really get upset overtly. Subconsciously, we definitely do. And I'll talk about why later. But what we say to ourselves matters because we internalize it. What do you say to yourself when you make mistakes? What do you say to yourself when you don't do the right thing? What do you say to yourself when you're sad, when you're angry, when you're happy? What do you say to yourself? And so being mindful of our internal dialogue is something that's definitely important because, as I said earlier, we're with ourselves 24/7. So if all we're saying to ourselves is things that are negative, like we're putting ourselves down, may it be putting down work that we did or undermining your own intelligence or saying you're not good enough or saying bad things about even your body, right? That's definitely a big thing, especially in our culture. But it's important to remember that while you can't control what other people say to you, you can control what you say to yourself. You might have heard of the term, or not even the term, but of the phrase that battles are won in the mind, right? And to be honest, this episode is as much a reminder for me as it is for you, because like the phrase says, battles are first won in the mind. So for example, if you have, let's say, a new undertaking or you're entering a new space that you're unsure about, first believing that you have the capabilities and firmly asserting that to yourself will definitely allow your actions to follow suit. And so what will happen is you'll go in, right? You'll be confident, you'll be bold, you'll be able to get whatever it is done that you're setting out to get done, right? Another reason, right, why it's important to be mindful of your internal dialogue, because if you're starting something new and you're like, oh my God, your first thought is, oh, I can't do it, or I could never, or this would never happen for me, or whatever it might be. You've already lost because you've already defeated yourself before you've even given your chance to try. So don't count yourself out before you've even participated. So if you're saying negative things to yourself, that's exactly what you're going to believe. So if you're saying to yourself, I can't do this, or I'm not smart enough to do this, or I'm not good enough, then that's what you're going to believe, and that's what your actions will portray, right? Because your mind and your body are connected. They can't go against each other. And so with any action, right, it starts out first in the mind. If you think about just the whole idea of mind-body connection in general, your brain controls everything that you do, right? It controls your breathing, your heartbeat, your walking, your movement, speech, even right now, right? Like without my brain, I couldn't speak. And so that's why it's important to be able to take control of our minds. Of course, it's easier said than done for sure, but it is not impossible. And so I guess I can give you a story in terms of what that means. Like for me, right, I have to first believe that I can do something, or that something is possible. It doesn't matter how many people provide encouragement or share that they believe. If I don't believe, then it's not going to come to pass, because what's important, right, is that you first have to believe, and then of course your community, right, will help to bolster that belief with their shared belief and encouragement. But for me, I know, like, I have to believe that something can work, right, in order for it to do so. Not only is it true that what you say to yourself is what you'll believe, but what you say to yourself consistently is what you will believe. And so you always want to be mindful of what you're saying to yourself, and learning how to switch gears as well. Something that I've definitely learned from therapy is that sometimes you have to counteract that voice in your head that's going against everything that you know to be true. A voice in your head that's saying, oh, you don't deserve, you don't belong here, you can't do this, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough. It's up to you to counteract that voice and be like, wait, no, I am good enough, I am smart enough, I am capable of doing this, I do belong here actually. Right? And as you practice counteracting that voice, over time it will diminish, because now not only are you practicing counteracting that voice, but also you're starting to believe, your mind and body are now starting to come into alignment with that thought. As the Christian Holy Book says, life and death are in the power of our tongue. That means we have the authority to speak life into ourselves and into others, and we also have the capacity to speak death or negative things. So when we are mindful of the things that we say to ourselves, when we're saying things to ourselves, think of it as planting seeds. One negative thought to yourself or about yourself can multiply if we aren't careful. And so that's why I say what you say to yourself consistently is what you'll believe, because over time that seed you've planted will grow, right? Because you're continuously watering it. And so it's important to remember that you have the authority, you have the capacity, the capability to switch gears and to speak life, right, where you were once speaking death. And also the concept of toxic positivity. That's not what we're talking about. A part of watching how you talk to yourself is also being honest with yourself. But it doesn't mean that you're going to bring yourself down. If in a moment, right, you have feelings of doubt or uncertainty, or you just don't feel like you can, it's important to acknowledge that and be honest with yourself, and to be like, you know what? I really want to do this thing. I really want to participate in this relationship, but this is how I feel, and this is how I would like to fix it. And so that's definitely something to consider as well. We're not being toxically positive, if that is a phrase, but we're being honest with ourselves, and we're also being gentle with ourselves, and we're also being careful with the words that we use to ourselves. The world is already harsh enough. You don't need to join them and be harsh with yourself also, you know? Yeah. Learning how to talk to yourself can also cause a ripple effect as well, right? Because how we talk to ourselves is how we're going to talk to others as well. Things that we're judging ourselves for, we also judge others for, right? And so if you're talking to yourself in a positive light or in a positive way, if you're being kind to yourself, if you're being gentle to yourself, then you can also be kind to others and gentle with others. Not only is it important to talk to yourself with kindness for you, but it's also important to talk to yourself with kindness for others. Whenever you get to those points where you feel like, oh my God, I won't be able to do this, and then the negative thoughts are coming up, take some time to sit with them. Try to understand why they come up or why they are coming up. Try to figure out a way to counteract them, because any kind of negative thought might have some kind of root. Who knows? Maybe someone planted that seed and then you took it up and started to believe it, and then now you're constantly watering that seed. Remember that you are in control of your internal environment. You're in control of the seeds that you water, the seeds that you plant, and you're in control of how you feel. And so sometimes you might want to wallow, and sometimes that might be necessary. So definitely don't judge yourself if you feel like anything that I'm saying, you're trying to do it, but it's hard to do. Because definitely I've tried to counteract the negative things, right, that are being said to myself internally. And sometimes it sticks, sometimes it doesn't, and you just have to put in a little more effort and try a little harder, right? I definitely think that being mindful of how we talk to ourselves comes with some level of mental prowess. And if you think about exercise, being mentally strong is definitely something that requires great effort and practice and consistency. Whenever those thoughts, negative thoughts come up, just practice, just try. Regardless of how hard it might be, just try. So let me give you an example of how negative self-talk can impact what it is that you're trying to do. Even with filming these episodes, there is a tiny voice in the back of my head like, why are you even filming this? No one cares what you want to say, right? And so let's say if I let that thought continue and get the best of me, then I'll quit, right? I would quit. I would not film these videos, and I would just be crippled, right, with the thought of, you're not qualified to make these kinds of videos, but just have to ignore it and keep going. It's so weird that I haven't seen a deer since I've been on the walk this morning. I usually do. Literally, you can talk yourself out of something that might be beneficial to you, might be beneficial to someone else through you. No, that's not a deer. Your ego is kind of like a misguided part of you that's so-called trying to protect you, but not really, because it's basically talking you out of doing things that will help you grow, doing things that will take you outside of your comfort zone, talking you outside of things that might even have the most positive effect on your life. Yes, you have to definitely practice and make the effort to say to your ego, no, this is not protecting me. This is keeping me small. So we're going to end today's episode with a couple of ways to be mindful of how we talk to ourselves. First thing is definitely recognizing when we're being negative or even dishonest with ourselves, right? Because definitely having positive self-talk also requires you to be honest with yourself, right? If we're thinking about like things like toxic positivity, you definitely don't want to lie to yourself. And you also want to be able to acknowledge how you're feeling and find ways to heal or to counteract or even to soothe whatever it is you're feeling. In addition to being honest with yourself and being aware, right, of when you're talking negatively to yourself, to counteract that voice in your head that's being negative or trying to keep you in your comfort zone or keep you from expanding or growing, right? So definitely being aware of those moments, being honest with yourself, and switching gears by counteracting that voice in your head with what you know to be true. And also sitting with it, because sometimes it's not going to be as easy as I'm saying to like be like counteracting that voice. And sometimes it might even require you speaking to yourself out loud, whether it be in the mirror or just to yourself. I definitely do talk to myself out loud, and I might seem insane to other people, but that's okay. I'm sure they have moments where they talk to themselves out loud as well. But yeah, so I hope today's rambling was helpful for you, and I definitely would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, so sound off below, and I will see you guys in next week's episode. Have a lovely day. Bye.